Hello everyone. So right now we are in the 10th week of my .NET 8.0 weekly journey or week of 10. Let's start to discuss what we have been discussed in the previous week. So previous week we discussed about MSBuild and the project system. So I'm going to put emphasis on the project system and MSBuild. But before that, this is me. I'm Erawan Kusumawardono, and next to me is my wife. So I think I should replace this photo because it started to look the same for more than 8 weeks. So yeah, I will replace this on next video. And this is my LinkedIn. My GitHub ID is Eriawan. If you have a .NET open source project or any open source based on .NET or running on top of .NET, and if you want to have some support for additional CI/CDs or also some other kinds of non-technical support, such as how to ensure that your project is successful, especially about the way to manage. Let's say if you want to have some discussion about how to sustain or maintain your open source project healthily, you can ask me on behalf of .NET Foundation for many kinds of support. I'm not going to promise you anything, but at least the .NET Foundation will be glad to provide you some basic support, especially if you want to have some nice way, like I mentioned before, CI/CD. But the tool that we are using is Azure DevOps. So the support that we are going to offer you is using Azure DevOps and others. Unfortunately, I'm not going to mention all of kinds of support. Just ping me if you are interested. So we have gone from the beginning, not just the intro of the video, but also what is .NET and .NET 8. I haven't really touched the new features of .NET 8.0 yet, but I'm trying to explain to you the journey in terms of the perspective of me starting from .NET Framework, not for really those who are new to .NET Core, because I'm pretty sure most of you that are starting to learn .NET start to learn from .NET Core, most of you. But I think most of the most of the learners in Indonesia are actually starting from .NET Framework, I believe, because we in Indonesia are still using, most of us are still using Visual Studio, not the latest one. We are using somehow between 2015, 2017, and 2019. And honestly, on some companies, for example, the one that is being used on my employer, being used by my employer, we are still using Visual Studio 2017 to maintain compatibility for certain customers. So we have already done some education to increase awareness. Okay, we cannot support you anymore because honestly, the fact is that Visual Studio 2017 and before the releases, of course, before 2017, are not supported anymore by Microsoft actually. That also affect the .NET Framework version and runtime. Runtime meaning that in terms of runtime, .NET Framework 4.0 is still supported because it is included in the current latest modern Windows such as Windows 10 and also the latest one, the Windows 11. Therefore, .NET Framework is still supported, but it's still supported doesn't mean that on the application development side you are still supported by Microsoft. It is not yet clear and for most of the people, but you can read the .NET Framework lifecycle and also .NET Core lifecycle. In terms of support, it is supported, but in terms of the way the advances and also features, there is no new features in the .NET Framework anymore since 4.8, because 4.8 will be the latest and the last version of .NET Framework. We are now why I'm putting emphasis more on .NET Core. Now we are discussing the toolings, project system, and MSBuild. So this last point or last subpoint E is divided into 3 videos. The previous one that we have seen before, and right now is the second. After this will be the third video, because MSBuild is a really big topic, and big in the sense that it's hard to just discuss in a one video. That will take me more about 2.5 hours if you want to discuss, and I'm pretty sure that it will not touch the advanced concept, or it will not touch the other even foundational or fundamental concept of MSBuild. Okay, right now I'm going to focus more on the demo. Yeah, this is episode 10. More emphasis on .NET Core SDK project system. Just to recap, core technologies or features are these that also include project system and MSBuild. I should mention project system as part of the tooling, but in some sense, to me, it's not tooling. It is more like a fundamental framework. But in order for that fundamental framework to be able to be leveraged or work on, you need MSBuild. This is the tool that could only be able to describe and interpret and translate all of those elements inside any kinds of CS plots or VB plots or FS plots or other kinds of project that is based on project system. We shall see that previously we have discussed project system in the .NET Core is purely based on the Visual Studio CPS, and I can assure you that the CPS is actually not that kind of hard, but you still have to read the documentation, of course, because CPS basically comes with a good or nice features such as globbing. I already discussed in the previous video. I'll try to include the link on this video description, of course. And then related to that is MSBuild. Again, the tool that translate those CS prods, VB prods, FS prods, and many kinds of project that's based on the MSBuild, based on Visual Studio CPS, of course. But CPS is basically on top of the project system that is defined within the ecosystem of Visual Studio. Although, for the perspective of .NET Core, you don't need Visual Studio to be installed on Linux to be able to compile it, but yeah, we have to know the fact that it comes from the Visual Studio ecosystem or tooling ecosystem. For MSBuild, you can have .NET Build, and .NET Build will run MSBuild implicitly. You can also run explicitly MSBuild by using .NET MSBuild. So on top of .NET Core, we have .NET Build and .NET MSBuild. For .NET MSBuild, the options of .NET MSBuild is still the same with the MSBuild by default. There is additional note I will show you later in the demo. And now these are the .NET Build in terms of .NET 8.0 SDK. So these are the latest options available for .NET Build. You see that we have use current runtime, -f or -- framework. This for specifying the TFM that we are going to use to compile, and also the configuration. Configuration is usually we have two common configurations such as debug and release. You can also have your own configuration, but to me it's a complex concept and it's hard to maintain on your own actually. The next one is runtime, and then version suffix. Set the value of the version suffix property to use when building the project. So you mark the compilation to use Raspberry version 1.0, 1.1 or whatever. I suggest to follow the convention of semantic versioning, but that would be a different discussion. And then no restore. No restore means that if you run .NET Build, you should not restore the project. Restore the project is somehow a little bit misleading because the actual action is restoring the NuGet project, not restore the project. Restoring the NuGet project or NuGet package inside the project. There is some kind of specific kind of project. It is called NuGet project, but it is rarely discussed in most of the documentation and forum. Let's just say that this restore option or -- no restore, sorry, is mostly used to restore the NuGet package reference inside the CS or VB or MS. So restore the NuGet, not restoring the project. Restore the NuGet means that all of the reference NuGet package inside that project will be downloaded and to be cross-checked against the TFM that is used in the project. So it's a little bit more complex, but if I have some time, I will demo after this MS Build. Yes, actually, it is almost or very little related to MS Build, of course. And then we have interactive. It means that allows the command to stop and wait for user input or action, for example, to complete authentication. And the next one is verbosity. Verbosity is the same as the MS Build verbosity level, such as quiet, minimal, normal, detailed, and diagnostic. Next one is -- debug. Unfortunately, we don't have any explanation. I'll skip it for now. The next one is -o or -- output. Output directory of the folder to place the build artifacts. The next one is -- artifacts path. The artifacts path that includes build, publish, and pack. Will go in a subfolder under the specified path. So it seems like artifacts path is more advanced than output. Whereas output is usually the resulting DLL, not the build, publish, and pack. Next one is no incremental, means it is not using incremental building. Next is no dependencies, project to project reference, and only build the specified project. And then no logo, it is the same as no logo in MS Build. The next one is also quite interesting, -- or -- self-contained. Publish .NET runtime with your application, so the runtime doesn't need to be installed. This means that you are going to bundle the .NET runtime with your application. So your distribution of your application will be much larger than before. Like you normally just deploy the DLL and usually don't care about the runtime. You only specify, okay, the minimum runtime should be version this, and it should be good. But now SG means you can ignore the runtime. But this is also cannot be used, just easily, because you have to pay attention if you are going to develop .NET Core with Windows Forms or WPF. Although you don't have to pay attention for other things, but WinForms is also for Windows only, WPF is for Windows only, therefore your distribution of your app will be very, very big. Not just it will contain all of the necessary DLL that comes with the WinForms and WPF, but also the other kinds of infrastructure of the SDK, such as the binding to native interface against Windows native, will also be included. And there is a minimum version of Windows that you also have to be paying attention. So if you remember on the previous videos, when I use .NET 8, the minimum version of Windows supported is Windows 10. Therefore, for any kinds of WinForms or WPF application, for to ensure that you can run it successfully for Windows, means that you have to be sure that the distribution of any WinForms or WPF application on top of .NET 8.0 will always be run at least Windows 10. Unfortunately, it is not the initial version of Windows 10 that can support .NET 8.0. You need at least, if I'm not mistaken, Windows 10, there is version 118 blah 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 000. So 10.0.18000 is actually convertible to, or can be seen as available for Windows 10 15.01. But you have to consult the Microsoft documentation for that. And yeah, I will bring that information to you next week, because that version listing or version number listing, somehow it is not completely described in the documentation. You will know only when you do the compile, unfortunately. And usually I'm just using Visual Studio because I'm using Windows, because I'm targeting to run only on Windows if I use WinForms or WPF, of course. It is more natural, or it is more, you can call it as seamless if you just use Visual Studio. And then no self-contained means that you publish your application as framework-dependent application. So framework-dependent means compatible .NET runtime must be installed on the target machine. And then we have -A or -arch, the target architecture, meaning you are going to explicitly tell the compilation either this is a 32-bit or 64-bit or some kind of MSIL specific, or any CPU. But please remember that if you are going to target your app against WinForms or WPF, you have to specify the bitness explicitly. That is the common best practice. Usually, the safest way you should specify to use 32-bit. But I think since 2024, it is safe to assume that you can use 64-bit, because by default, Visual Studio 2022 is also using 64-bit, meaning that when you do the instrumentation, sometimes it is faster to also target your application to use 64-bit. But this is my own personal preference. Of course, the actual profile of your application might be different. You cannot assume that if you target 64-bit, your app will be faster than 32-bit. That is a false assumption, because 64-bit can also mean your addressable storage to contain your variables and other kinds of temporary variables or temporary memory that is going to be taken by your app is also will be larger by default, because you are dealing with the 64. The op opcode and the resulting .NET GIT just in time will be better if you run 64-bit on 64-bit operating system. 32-bit is okay. That means you are only have a disadvantage of having a smaller limit of maximum memory available to you. If you have 64-bit app, the maximum memory will be almost unlimited. Consider that you have to know that 64-bit support the 2 power of 63, and that means I think more than 1 or 2 TB if I'm not mistaken, but yeah, you can check for your own. And then we have a dash dash OS, the operating system. To me, you don't have to worry about dash dash OS most of the time, unless you are going to specify operating system specific to ensure that your compilation result only concerning or only focusing for that OS. Let's say if you develop MAUI app and you want to focus on compiling the app on macOS, especially if your customer has submitted many kinds of report that this app is okay on, let's say, Windows, but it is not okay on macOS, or maybe it is not okay on, let's say, Android, for example. That dash dash OS will be much more helpful to ensure that you are only going to focus on that kind of compilation result. But again, in most cases, especially for this kind of video, you don't have to worry for now. So yeah, but you should not ignore it. Only you don't have to worry. Let's just say you can skip it for now, but I will not dare to say you can ignore. And then the next one is disable build server. Yes, you can ignore this option, but if you want to have more granular control on your CI/CD later, you have to pay attention on this option, because this relates to any kinds of build servers that is compatible with the way MSBuild works. So I put the emphasis here, the way MSBuild works, not the way the .NET works. Okay. Hopefully, after we are finishing discussing this MSBuild, I will discuss this on a separate video. So it will be 2 or more 3 weeks after this. And then the next one is dash H, of course. It will show the help for the command option. Which brings us to these main 3 questions, and then the next question on the latest question is the bonus one. First question, can I run .NET Build against a solution with a mix of .NET Framework and .NET Core project? Okay, let's try to run that. And before that, the second one is, can I run .NET Build on .NET Framework project? Third one, should I just use MSBuild for both .NET Framework and .NET Core projects? You may think that, oh, I just use .NET Build only for .NET Core project. You can do that. But I have shown you before that even if you want to build a .NET framework, but if the source code of the CS or VB project is using the SDK project, you can also compile the .NET framework. I've shown you that it works by running the result of the migration from .NET Framework to .NET Core project. So it is very doable. But since I also mentioned that .NET Build is also using MSBuild internally, then this question is also important in the sense that we can just use MSBuild for both .NET Framework and .NET Core projects. Yes, you can, but let's see. Of course, the last question is also very, very interesting. Hopefully, I still have some time to explain or at least give some demo about this. So the first question, but I add some other kinds of interesting topic that running the first question, can I run .NET Build against a solution with mixes of .NET Framework and .NET Core project on Ubuntu? So on .NET Core supported Linux distros such as Ubuntu. I'm using Ubuntu for now because this machine or my machine currently has Ubuntu installed. Hopefully, I should be able to give some quick demo. And yeah, now let's do the demo. Let's go back to the first initial question. Can I run .NET Build against a solution with mixes of .NET and .NET Core project? So we have seen that previous source code or samples code that we have, the solution, if you remember the sample console or hello.NET console, that solution have many kinds of project that is have a mixes between .NET Framework and .NET Core. So let's go to that cd source. You see, for this folder, I'm using global.json to set the SDK at least 8.0.300. Yep. And also I'm using roll forward, means that now that I have 8.0.400, it can still compile, of course. Let's do .NET Build. .NET Build. Hello console. I'm going and I'm going to use option restore. So I'm going to restore and then build. If I'm not specifying restore, I will get an error. If you remember that it doesn't know how to resolve the package references. So let's try without restore. Oh, it seems okay. Oh, yeah. Now I remember now. You can use restore if you use MSBuild for, but .NET Build is actually implicitly restore it first. You see that it can successfully compile the NetFX, as we have seen here. Sample .NET Core NetFX 7 is targeting to use .NET Framework, and as usual, the resulting compilation is having this kind of convention. So the bin and then the configuration is we are using debug by default, and then after the debug folder, the exe or executable or the result of the compilation directly available under the debug. So there is no TFM. You see all of the .NET Core project usually bin, the configuration, and the TFM is embedded as the folder name, like we have here, debug net 6.0, debug net 6.0-Windows 7. So you have to remember that .NET 6.0 is still supporting Windows 7. And now we have .NET 8.0-Windows. Okay, now we have proven that the first question is doable. The next question is, can I run .NET Build on a .NET Framework project? To ensure that I have a objective condition or clean condition, I'm just going to run the git clean and git reset again. I think I'm going to run it on the upper folder. And yep. Then basically you can just .NET Build inside the upper folder of the source, but I use source to ensure that I'm going to respect the global JSON. And now I'm going to run this. Hello. Oh, no. The name is supposed to be sample, I think. Sample, yep. NetFX. And of course, I won't restore it. And then let's see what happened. You see that we can use .NET Build against legacy .NET Framework project. So the second question is doable, meaning that it is okay to run .NET Build against .NET Framework. So the next one is, should I just use MSBuild for both .NET Framework and .NET Core project? Yes, because basically .NET Build is using MSBuild. But we could try to check my points here. And of course I have to clean again and run it. I'm using developer command prompt for VS 2022. Yeah, you see for VS 2022. I'm going to run MSBuild, and also I have to specify the solution. And verbose is set to minimal. No, the correct one is this one. Verbose to minimal. And then I have to restore, specify or tell MSBuild to restore first and then build. Let's see if this works or not. Yep, it works. You see that it can compile the NetFX successfully. So it seems we see some interesting fact. The .NET Core project, it is compiled first. So the .NET framework is compiled later. So all of the .NET Core related project is compiled first. Or maybe it can be seen that maybe it has some NuGet implicitly. I don't know. We will see. We can also investigate this later. But right now we see that the pure .NET Framework project is compiled after all of the .NET Core is done. Compared to the original output, the .NET Build, we see that it is somehow interesting. So the first it tries to compile is sample with some net x0, ASP.NET X Core X0, and then hello.NET console. Sample confirms. Is this related to how the sales approach is defined in the solution? Let's see. Let's try to see or look inside the solution. I just use VS Code for this one. we should see SLN. So the first solution is this hello.net. Next one is sample WinForms.net. Next one is sample SPNet Core. Yes, the sample console network is the latest project that is specified. And the GUID for this project is 4D39. 4D39 is also on the latest one. Okay. Interesting. So the .NET Core is compiling the let's see. The .NET Build CLL or .NET Core is compiling first the WinForms.NET X0. Compiling WinForms.NET X0 first. Where is my VS Code? Okay, this one. WinForms first. And then the SPNet. Yeah, so the order of the compilation is different. It is quite common that you don't have pay attention to the order of the build, but this will be problematic and you have to pay attention if you need to ensure that the order of the build is correct. Why? Because let's say if you have more than one project, at least three, for example, the one is the business layer, the next project is the data access layer, and then the third one is the, let's say, your ASP.NET Core app. You need to be sure that the business logic is compiled first, and then the data access layer is to be compiled first, or vice versa, depends on what your actually needs. After those two are correctly or successfully compiled, then you can be sure that the web project that has reference to that business logic and the data access layer is having the correct sequence or order. So therefore, for that kind of scenario, the order of the build execution is very, very important. Unfortunately, we don't know how to check that by looking at the solution. So there should be some way to do that. Yes, we can discuss that, but we can discuss that later. And it is closely or highly related to MSBuild, of course. Yep. Now, we have seen that this works. So, question 1, 2, 3 is okay, but I should add more emphasis on this one. I run question 1, 2, 3 on Windows. So the next interesting question is, can I test this question? Can I run .NET Build against solution with mix of .NET Framework and .NET Core project on Linux? Okay, we'll try it. First, let's try to, again, ensure that this is clean. I'm going to close VS Code for now. Clean. Where is it? Okay. And then I'm going to run the .NET Build on Ubuntu. So this is my local Ubuntu. Yes, I'm running Ubuntu on top of Windows using WSL, Windows Substituting for Linux. If you want to know how to configure this, I could prepare a video if you want to, or if there are many requests to just to ensure that you successfully install this. If you have many requests on this one, I will show you. Otherwise, I'm planning to do this, or I'm going to plan this maybe after the release of the .NET 9. Again, if you have many requests to ask me to, how to configure this, how to prepare, or how to ensure that my Ubuntu have the latest .NET Core SDK, I will do that. But in order to do that, don't forget to like and subscribe first, because that will always encourage me to, do this video, and not just doing this, but also make it better. So let's see, where am I now in this folder? Okay, this home area. I need to be able to use the folder map directly into the folder of this one. So git repo large, GitHub repo large, and Indonesian.NET Weekly. Now I'm going to CD to D drive, but D drive in Linux is not like D with the colon. You have to know the exact drive map. So for Ubuntu, the map is under the mnt slash the drive letter. So if I'm going to change folder to D drive, root of the D drive, I have to use mnt slash D. And the content of this one. Yeah, this is the content of my D drive. And now I'm going to go to this browse and then Indonesian. Let's just clear this. And you see, this is the same folder as the one that I just opened in this one. So just to prove this, we have the git ignore VS Code license, project migration samples, readme, and source. The other thing is also the same. Only the .git is shown. .git is basically a hidden folder. By default, Windows will not show that. Oh, it's also maybe a system folder. Only used by Git, not used by GitHub, of course. And now let's try to run this. First, I'm going to do .NET build. Go to source, of course, and run .NET build. Hello. And so this is the first time I'm running .NET build on Ubuntu, and this solution contains a mix of .NET Core and .NET Framework project. Let's see what would be the result of this guy. If you remember, I don't have to run dash restore. So just run it. And we have error. The first one is having error when it tries to compile the sample WinForms using F#. Yeah. This is, of course, it is making sense because sample WinForms using F# is targeting F# .NET Core, and it is using TFM of Windows, like NetX0 Windows. So, yeah. The next interesting problem is why it doesn't try to compile all of those projects in this solution and then it tries to report all. So it seems like the first error it finds, then the compilation is stopped. So okay, this basically proves that you cannot compile WinForms inside Ubuntu. Now let's try to just do the cleanup. Can I use this to ensure that it seems okay? or maybe I'm wrong. Oh, okay, it is clean. Now I'm going to go to the source again, just to prove we can try to compile the hello console.fx directly. So that build, not the hello, the sample console.fx. Yes. So now we got errors that says the reference assemblies for .NET Framework version 4.8 were not found. To resolve this, install the developer pack for this framework version or retarget your application. You can also download .NET Framework developer packs at aka.ms slash msbuild slash developer packs, and it shows the which file it has the error. For this case, of course, the file that has the error is the project file. In this compilation is the sample console.fx.js prod. So the simple answer for the latest question is you cannot run on Ubuntu. I mean, running .NET Build against a solution that have mixes of .NET Framework and .NET Core project on Ubuntu. There is a way actually to ensure that you can run, but that kind of what is the term for that? That kind of workaround, it is doable if you compile for console for this kind of case, like compiling for WinForms. You may find it more difficult because console is just simple version of WinForms. Actually, if you run console on Windows, you already have a basic GUI, but it is more like a low level because you are concerning only to output your to console out. So you are not going to have a complex GDI, for example. There's no pure GUI for console, but that would be a different story because in order to fix this kind of problem, if you really still want to compile your .NET references on Ubuntu, you can also ensure that you add these references. There is a NuGet for this one actually, but honestly, the last time I tried to solve this, it only works nicely for console. For more or most advanced cases such as WinForms, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but we'll see. Because to me, it is also challenging if we can do that. So we could have some kind of way to set up, some kind of build server. Because if I use Linux, it is usually more manageable in a sense of the it is more cost effective than having a build server that only compiles WinForms, for example, because you cannot beat the price of Linux. It is free, of course, but on the other hand, you cannot also ensure that your most Windows-specific apps such as WinForms and WPF will be always be able to compile nicely on Linux. So there will be some struggling setup and configuration for that. It is more complex. Yeah, you have to bear with me for now. And then yes, we have now seen that you can run .NET Build on Linux because this Linux has the SDK. So just to prove my point, okay, I'm going to clean this first. Test xfd press test hard reset. Now I'm going to check the available SDK on this Ubuntu. So I have 6.0.425 and also 8.0.400. I know that the version available on my Ubuntu is not the same as the one that I have now on Windows, but to me, oh, okay, it seems there is no update yet after 8.0.400. To me, it's basically if it's just minor difference in the feature, as long as the prefix of that feature is still the same. Let's say if I have 400 compared to 401, you can always be safely assume that your compilation is okay, still works, and there should be no problem, like a compatibility or something, because Microsoft has somehow guaranteed that all of the feature is only if the prefix of the feature to notify that 400 means that you are working on 17.11, and maybe on the 17.12 you will have 500. So 5 and the rest is the iteration of that feature. So can be that 400, 401, 402, and so on. Therefore, you could always paying attention on the prefix of the first number of the feature. I know that, like we have discussed before, it doesn't make sense to always pay attention. To me, it is making sense because I often face many developers that told me, why do I have to pay attention on this versioning? Even for the Visual Studio itself, not just the the major version, the major minor is also having some life cycle on its own. So it is recommended by Microsoft for the latest one. Right now we have 2022 to always keep up with the version or releases that have the LTS, long term. The next one, yes, we may need to have the latest one, although it may not be LTS, but it may have some kind of interesting release inside that version number. Let's say we have 8.0 since 17.10, or oh no, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's since 17.9. So 17.9 have 8.0. That means that if you want to target the .NET Core against the 8.0, you have to at least have Visual Studio 17.9, for example. So again, you have to pay attention to major and minor. And that major and minor will define the related version that is supported by that Visual Studio releases. In this case, 17.11 has its own SDK. It is called 8.0.400. The version that is available since Visual Studio 17.11. Maybe in the next version of 17.11.4, because yesterday, for your information, I have updated my Visual Studio. Now my Visual Studio is 17.11.3. This is just come fresh, I think 2 days ago, if I'm not mistaken. As you see in this doc, 17. Oh no, not this one. Yeah, this is for 2019, and this is for 17.3. So release September 10th. So it's quite a latest and greatest one in terms of the update after having a 17.11. We are now in the third iteration of 17.11, and you see that it has some kind of important fix, such as cannot publish .NET Framework application after 17.11, cannot pair to Mac. I know that I don't have Mac, so I could ignore this cannot pair to Mac after Visual Studio 17.11 update. But for this kind of bug fixes, such as cannot publish .NET Framework application after 17.11, it is important to me. This is why I update. Although honestly, I don't need this for now, but I feel that I should be grateful that other guys have experienced this and then they immediately report this one. This is a very, very nice work that you guys have done. I really, really appreciate it. And because usually or normally people report bug only if they experience it. And to me, this kind of bug report is very, very precious and also helpful because this is can be seen as a blocker where you cannot publish on a framework application because this feature is already available since 2017, if I'm not mistaken. So it should not be broken in 2022, of course. So yeah. And this is the bug report. Have a web publish profile, go internal IS. How many votes? Okay. It has 22 votes. Some people have confirmed it's not fixed in the 7.11.1. Okay. Oh wow. Okay, let's see the date that report this one. August 7th. Oh, 16. Okay, August 16. Previously, it works on 17.10. Yeah. Why? To me, if this kind of bug has been working before in the previous days, then yes, of course, it is a regression bug. But also, it is quite a blocker to me because if you cannot publish the app, something is wrong and you cannot work. It's in 17.11 too. Yeah. Well, yeah. It seems the confirmation about 17.11.3 is okay. Hmm. Is there any kinds of posted solution? Let's see. No solution. Only informing that fix has been released. This message is somehow a little bit misleading because it doesn't really tell you which version of Visual Studio that has the fix. Only in the original bug report that says it has okay, this information fixed in Visual Studio version 7.11.3. Okay, I will post the link later in the video description. And yeah, I think it's been more than 50 minutes, looks like. Okay, now I have presented or demo to you that you can run .NET. I'm running .NET build means that okay, I can run .NET Core on Ubuntu. Of course, I have shown you, and I actually have promised you this last month that I'm going to prepare to have a Ubuntu to run .NET Core, which is okay and it is nicely done right now. Just to prove to you, okay, let's go to source. see whether I can find a sample console. Okay, I can run it. Hello.NET console. Yep. Or pass the path to. Oh, I forgot to use dash dash project. Dash dash project. There you are. It compiles and then tries to run it on my Ubuntu, of course. Oh, okay. I'm using multiple frameworks. Yeah, yeah. And I'm glad that I have a error message that quite self-describing. Let's just use net equals 0. Yep, we have a hello.net. Version is egg.0.egg. This is the runtime version that I have related to egg.0.400. Now this proves that yes, it is cross-platform. And the nice thing about having the WSL is you can switch back and forth between Windows and Ubuntu without using raw virtual machine. It is using virtual machine implicitly, but this means that I don't have to go through the Hyper-V and then do some nasty setup. It is nicely integrated within the folders of Windows. You can go back and forth. You see. Okay. Now is the end of this second sub episode of MS Build and Project System. Next video will be the last series. So this is the 2 of 3. Next video is 3 of 3. Next week. Please don't forget to like and subscribe this video and have a nice .NET development. Bye bye.